Well, hello, followers out there. I got a special treat for you right now. I'm here with the great Colonel DeBeers. I'm shaking myself because I just met him a few minutes ago, and it's a bucket list talking. And you can see him meeting other people here. This is the great Colonel DeBeers doing the great thing, and he's so kind of giving us a couple minutes of his time. And I know we just talked about him about a month ago, so now to see him live is so exciting. Colonel DeBeers, thank you so much for joining us. I'm a big fan from when actually not really a big fan because I was young enough that I hated you growing up, and I know that's what you were supposed to do. You made me watch because I was hoping every week you'd get beat up by whoever, Jimmy Superfly Snuka or Scott Hall or whoever it was at the time. So what was it like in the AWA? I mean, I look at the pro wrestling, back at the Pro Wrestling Illustrated, you would make number 2, number 3 on the most hated list. The fans hated you back then, and now that I've met you, being such a cool guy that you are, was that hard to like go from being someone that everyone wanted to hate to like just going back to your regular life and living like that?
This is my life. Colonel DeBeers was Colonel DeBeers. He was able to separate fact from fiction. He knew that he was never going to be a Hall of Fame member because it's a work. The guys that should be in the Hall of Fame are some of the guys that probably never won a match, and that's the truth of the matter. They're the star builders, not the guys that get their hand raised and go on to the great glory and kiss babies and get the big contracts. It's the guy in the trenches that makes them look good, that makes them the person that they are. There's not much difference in wrestling today than it was in my day. The only thing is these guys are a lot more athletic and a lot better, in shape. And they're of a higher moral character, just to be honest.
Well, I would agree with almost all of that, except for the fact that I think there's a lot of you guys that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, just because it's really, wrestling is all about what the fans want to watch, what entertains the fans, and what the fans want to believe. And if it wasn't for you making my heroes want to have someone to fight and have someone to fight for justice for, then I probably wouldn't have been as intrigued as I was. And now here it is 30 years later, and I'm still as big a fan as I was back when I was 10 years old. I mean, I understand everything a little bit more. And with the internet and stuff, all the people understand it a little bit more. But it was people like you that made it believable for us. So once again, just thank you for that. I know a lot of my fans, one of your biggest feuds was with Jimmy Superfly Snuka, and I know that was a very almost ahead of its time with some of the stuff that was said and just the hatred. I don't know if there's ever a feud where there was more hatred than that one right there. So what was it like working with Jimmy, and what were some of the things that made that work?
Well, I think just the fact that it was a current affair. It was a racial issue, which at that time the South African controversy was front page on every newspaper in the country. That helped, push the angle. But it was a great feud because Jimmy Snuka was a great worker, and you got to understand, which I don't think a lot of guys do today, that before you can have evil, you've got to have good. But to have good, you still have to have evil. Where is God without the devil? He wouldn't have an opponent. So, and it's the same thing in life, the same thing in wrestling. You got to have an uphill battle to fight. I was at the top of the hill knocking all the cocksuckers down. That's exactly why we watched and why it was so good. Well, this is just so cool. Like I said, a month ago we were just talking about you with Mick Karch on AWA Unabridged. You can go back to that episode if you want to and read that. Some of my fans who are tuning in for the first time, it's called AWA Unabridged with Mick Karch. But then a month later, now we get to run into Colonel DeBeers, someone we talked about right during that episode. And the reason we talked about during that episode was because we were so in love with your character. I myself, 30 years later now, interviewing one of my childhood idols in a way. I mean, it was someone I hated from my childhood, but that's what you were supposed to do as a heel, and now 30 years later I get to interview you. So just thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else you just want to tell the people about anything, or are we... Not really.
I guess we're good to go.
I would make a statement. It would be political and this is not the time or the place.
Yeah, okay, so well, thank you, and thank you to all the fans out there watching this channel now. They appreciate just getting to hear a few of your stories, so thank you so much, Colonel DeBeers.